Hello everyone, welcome to class 12. So this is the complete audiobook for your poems. Let's start one by one. My Mother at 66. About the poet. Kamla Das, 1934 to 2009, was born in Malabar, Kerala. She is recognized as one of the India's foremost poets. Her works are known for the originality, versatility, and the indigenous flavor of the soil. Kamla Das has published many novels and short stories in English and Malayalam under the name Madhavikutty, in addition to 5 books of poetry. She is a sensitive writer who captures the complex subtleties of human relationships in lyrical idiom. My Mother at 66 is an example. Before you read, aging is a natural process. Have you ever thought what our elderly parents expect from us? Driving from my parents' home to Cochin last Friday morning, I saw my mother beside me, those open mouthed, her face ashen like that of a corpse, and realized that pain, that she was as old as she looked, but soon put that thought away and looked at the young trees sprinting, the merry children spilling out of their homes. But after the airport security check, standing a few yards away, I looked again at her, wan, pale as a late winter's moon, and felt that old familiar ache, my childhood's fear, but all I said was, "See you soon, Amma." All I did was smile and smile and smile. Sprinting means short, fast race or running. Van means colorless. Think it out. What is the kind of pain and ache that the poet feels? Why are the young trees described as sprinting? Why was the poet brought in the image of the merry children spilling out of their homes? Why has the mother been compared to the late winter's moon? What do the parting word of the poet and her smile signify? Notice that the whole poem is a single sentence punctuated by commas. It indicates a single thread of thought interspersed with observations of the real world around and the way these are connected to the main idea. Keeping quiet. About the poet. Pablo Neruda, 1904 to 1973, is the pen name of Neftali Ricardo Reyes Basualto, who was born in the town of Parral in Chile. Neruda's poems are full of easily understood images which make them no less beautiful. He won the Nobel Prize for Literature in the year 1971. In this poem, Neruda talks about the necessity of quiet introspection and creating a feeling of mutual understanding among human beings. Before you read, what does the title of the poem suggest to you? What do you think the poem is about? Let's start. Now we will count to 12 and we will all keep still. For once on the face of earth, let's not speak in any language. Let's stop for 1 second and not move our arms so much. It would be an exotic moment without rush, without engines. We would all be together in a sudden strangeness. Fishermen in the cold sea would not harm whales, and the man gathering salt would look at his hurt hands. Those who prepare green wars, wars with gas, wars with fire, victory with no survivors, would put on clean clothes and walk about with their brothers in the shade doing nothing. What I want should not be confused with total inactivity. Life is what it is about. I want no truck with death. If we were not so single minded about keeping our lives moving and for once could do nothing, perhaps a huge silence might interrupt this sadness of never understanding ourselves and of threatening ourselves with death. Perhaps the earth can teach us as when everything seems dead and later proves to be alive. Now, I'll count up to 12 and you keep quiet and I will go. The meaning of to have no truck with is to refuse to associate or deal with, to refuse or tolerate something. Think it out. What will counting up 12 and keeping still help us achieve? Do you think the poet advocates total inactivity and death? What is the sadness that poet refers to in the poem? What symbol from nature does the poet invoke to say that there can be life under apparent stillness? Try this out. Choose a quiet corner and keep still physically and mentally for about 5 minutes. Do you feel any change in your state of mind? Notice the differing line lengths of stanzas and the shift in the thought from stanza to stanza. A Thing of Beauty. About the poet John Keats, 1795 to 1821, was a British romantic poet. Although trained to be a surgeon, Keats decided to devote himself wholly to poetry. Keats' secret, his power to sway and delight the readers, lies primarily in his gift for perceiving the world and living his moods and aspiration in terms of language. The following is an excerpt from his poem Endymion, a poetic romance. The poem is based on a Greek legend in which Endymion, a beautiful young shepherd and a poet who lived on Mount Latmos, had a vision of Cynthia, the moon goddess. The enchanted youth resolved to seek her out and so wandered away through the forest and down under the sea. Before you read, what a pleasure does a beautiful thing give us? Are beautiful things worth treasuring? A thing of beauty. A thing of beauty is a joy forever. Its loveliness increases. It will never pass into nothingness, but will keep a bower quiet for us, and a sleep full of sweet dreams, and a health and quiet breathing. Therefore, on every morrow, are we wreathing a flowery band to bind us to the earth? Spite of despondence, of inhuman dearth, of noble natures, of the gloomy days, of all the unhealthy and over darkened ways, made for our searching, yes, in spite of all, some shape of beauty moves away the pall from our dark spirits, such the sun and the moon, the trees old and young, sprouting a shady boon. For simple sheep and such are daffodils, with the green world they live in, and clear rills, that for themselves a cooling covert make against the hot season, the mid forest brake, rich with sprinkling of fair musk rose blooms, and such too is the grandeur of the dooms we have imagined for the mighty dead, all lovely tales that we had heard or read, an endless fountain of immortal drink, pouring onto us from the heaven's brink. Here in this poem, rills means small streams and brake means a thick mass of ferns. Think it out. List the things of beauty mentioned in the poem. List the things that cause suffering and pain. What does the line, therefore, are we wreathing a flowery band to bind us to the earth, suggest to you? What makes human beings love life in spite of troubles and sufferings? Why is grandeur associated with the mighty dead? Do we experience things of beauty only for short moments or do they make a lasting impression on us? What image does the poet use to describe the beautiful bounty of the earth? Notice the consistency in rhyme scheme and line length. Also notice the balance in each line of the poem, as in, of noble natures of the gloomy days, of all the unhealthy and over darkened ways. Made for our searching, yes, in spite of all. Poem 4, A Roadside Stand by Robert Frost. About the poet. Robert Frost, 1874 to 1963, is a highly acclaimed American poet of the 20th century. Robert Frost wrote about characters, people, and landscapes. His poems are concerned with human tragedies and fears, his reaction to the complexities of life, and his ultimate acceptance of his burdens. Stopping by the woods on a snowy evening, Birches, Mending Walls are a few of his well known poems. In the poem A Roadside Stand, Frost presents the lives of poor, deprived people with pitiless clarity and with the deepest sympathy and humanity. Before you read, have you ever stopped at a roadside stand? Have you observed there? Let's start the poem. The little old house was out with a little new shed. In front at the edge of the road where the traffic sped. A roadside stand that too pathetically pled. It would not be fair to say for a dole of bread, but for some of the money, the cash whose flow supports the flowers of the cities from sinking and withering faint, the polished traffic passed with a mind ahead, or if ever aside a moment, then out of sorts at having the landscape marred with the artless paint of signs that with N turned wrong and S turned wrong offered for sale wild berries in wooden quarts, or crook necked golden squash with silver warts, or beauty rest in a beautiful mountain scene. You have the money, but if you want to be mean, why keep your money this crossly and go along? The hurt to the scenery wouldn't be my complaint, so much as the trusting sorrow of what is unsaid. Here, far from the city, we make our roadside stand and ask for some city money to feel in hand, to try if it will not make our being expand and give us the life of the moving pictures. Promise that the party in the power is said to be keeping from us. It is in the news that all these pitiful kin are to be bought out and mercifully gathered in to live in villages next to the theatre and the store, where they won't have to think for themselves anymore, while greedy good doers, beneficent beasts of prey, swarm over their lives enforcing benefits that are calculated to soothe them out of their wits. And by teaching them how to sleep, they sleep all day, destroy their sleeping at night the ancient way. Sometimes I feel I can hardly bear the thought of so much childish longing in vain. The sadness that lurks near the open window there, that waits all day in almost open prayer. For the squeal of brakes, the sound of the stopping car, of all thousand selfish cars that pass. Just one to inquire what a farmer's prices are, and one did stop but only to plough up grass, in using the yard to back and turn around, and another to ask the way to where it was bound, and another to ask, could they sell it a gallon of gas? They couldn't, this crossly. They had none, didn't it seem? No, in country money, the country scale of gain, the requisite lift of spirit, has never been found. or so the voice of the country seems to complain. I can't help owning the great relief it would be to put these people at one stroke out of their pain. And then next day, as I come back into the scene, I wonder how I should look like you to come to me and offer to put me gently out of my pain. So, this was the poem in which quartz means bottles or containers and squash means a kind of vegetable or gourd. Think it out. The city folk who drove through the countryside hardly paid any heed to the roadside stand or to the people who ran it. If at all they did, it was to complain. Which lines bring this out? What was their complaint about? What was the plea of the folk who had put up the roadside stand? The government and other social service agencies appear to help the rural people, but actually do them no good. Pick out the words and phrases that the poet uses to show their double standards. What is the childish longing that poet refers to? Why is it vain? Which lines tell us about the insufferable pain that the poet feels at the thought of the plight of rural poor? Talk about it. Discuss in small groups. The economic well-being of a country depends on a balanced development of the villages and cities. Try this out. You could stop at the dhaba or a roadside eatery on the outskirts of your town or city to see how many travelers stop there to eat, how many travelers stop for other reasons, how the shopkeepers are treated, the kind of business the shopkeepers do, the kind of life they lead. Notice the rhyme scheme. Is it consistent or is there any occasional variance? Does it indicate thought predominating over sound pattern? Notice the stanzas division. Do you find a shift to a new idea in the successive stanzas? Poem 5th of Flamingo, which is Aunt Jennifer's Tigers. About the poet. Adrienne Rich, 1929, was born in Baltimore, Maryland, USA. She is widely known for her involvement in contemporary women's movement as a poet and theorist. She has published 19 volumes of poetry, 3 collections of essays, and other writings. A strong resistance to racism and militarism echoes through her work. The poem Aunt Jennifer's Tigers addresses the constraints of married life a woman experiences. Before you read, what does the title of the poem suggest to you? Are you reminded of other poems on tigers? Aunt Jennifer's Tigers prance across a screen, bright topaz denizens of a world of green. They do not fear the men beneath the tree, they pace in the sleek chivalric certainty. Aunt Jennifer's fingers, fluttering through her wool, find even the ivory needle hard to pull. The massive weight of Uncle's wedding band sits heavily upon Aunt Jennifer's hand. When Aunt is dead, her terrified hands will lie, still ringed with the ordeals she was mastered by. The tigers in the panel that she made will go on prancing, proud and unafraid. Here in this poem, denizen means a person or animal or a plant that lives or grows or is often found in a particular place, and sleek means elegant. Think it out. How do denizens and chivalric add to our understanding of tigers' attitudes? Why do you think Aunt Jennifer's hands are fluttering through her wool in the second stanza? Why is she finding the needle so hard to pull? What is the suggested by the image massive weight of Uncle's wedding band? Of what or of whom is Aunt Jennifer terrified with in the third stanza? What are the ordeals Aunt Jennifer is surrounded by? Why is it significant that the poet uses the word ringed? What are the meaning of the word ringed in the poem? Why do you think Aunt Jennifer created the animals that are so different from her own character? What might the poet be suggesting through this difference? Interpret the symbols found in the poem. Do you sympathize with Aunt Jennifer? What is the attitude of the speaker towards Aunt Jennifer? Notice the colors suggested in the poem. Notice the repetitive use of certain sounds in the poem. With this, we complete the audiobook for poems. Similar audiobook is available for all the chapters. Do watch them.